Welcome back to Link by Golf. I'm your host Ross McGuire, and each episode we dive into the stories that connect us all through this great game. Quick shout out before we dive in. Huge thanks to True Links Wear for supporting the show. Check them out at truelinkswear.uk for shoes that will truly help you enjoy the walk. Podcast listeners can get an exclusive discount. Just DM me on Instagram for the details. This week I'm joined by Gary Wolstenholme, one of the most accomplished amateur golfers England has ever produced. We talk about his remarkable journey, from decades representing GB&I, to finally turning professional and finding success on the senior tour. So sit back and enjoy part one of my conversation with Gary Wolstenholme here on Link by Golf. Delighted to be joined by Gary Wolstenholme. Gary, thanks so much for joining. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to reminiscing on some of my stuff.
And Gary, where I wanted to start is, it's not quite the end, but I'd love you to just reflect on the years you've had in the senior tour, victories you've got, and just talk at a sort of high level about what that's been like, given the incredible journey you've had for so many years.
Yeah, it's an interesting story because obviously I didn't turn professional until very late. And I was basically Anthony Abram, who was the England chairman of selectors, phoned me up in late May 2008, and we'd just had a match against France. It hadn't been hugely successful for me. And he said, "Look, Gary, what we're going to do, we're not going to pick you anymore. And, we're going to concentrate on the under 25s, which I can understand why they went down that route. The interesting aspect to that as a caveat was that England then finished bottom in the home internationals, and apparently the report read lack of experience. So I did chuckle about that at the time. But anyway, they didn't. They'd stopped selecting me. I got 218 caps, which broke the record by some margin. So I could understand at some stage that it was going to happen. And having been told that, I've moved, back up to Heysham, which is where I live now. And, I had a guy I was getting some coaching from at the time. And I said, "Look, what do you think? What should I do?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean, what should you do? You've obviously got to turn professional and go for the senior tour." Now, it hadn't actually crossed my mind. And I'm probably crossing a boundary here from the point of view of what you were going to ask me as how it all started and everything else. But my father had said he didn't really want me to turn professional. He actually didn't want me to play golf full stop at the start. My father was a very, very good player. He'd also played for England and Great Britain and turned professional at 30. But in those days, in 1960, that was possible. Turning professional for the main tour, once you get to that age now, it's realistically not going to end well, generally speaking, unless you're an exceptional talent. And if you're an exceptional talent, why didn't you have that talent when you were younger to be able to, sort of go on to tour, etc. And there's lots of reasons why you might. But anyway, so I thought, well, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I went to tour school, missed out by a shot to get through to final stage, which was disappointing, but that's the way it goes. And obviously I'd used quite a lot of my own money. So I then started playing Europro, which was a wonderful opportunity for players with a view to then, transcending that and going on to other tours, etc., bigger and better stuff. And I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And I finished up playing, I think it was 8 events. And I'd done okay. But somebody didn't tell me that I needed to play one more to guarantee my status for the following year. And of course, one thing you learn about professional golf is you've got to learn to ask the right questions. And I didn't have any clue about the professional game, really. I knew about it, but not enough information, detailed information like things like that, and tour school and sponsorships and all these sorts of things. So I was sort of in a bit of a dilemma. Went back to the tour school for the Euro Pro again the following year, and 2009 improved. I wasn't making much money, but it proved that I got certainly the ability to be able to have a chance at being successful for the seniors. Only had one more year to go. And so in 2010, went back on Euro Pro, and I was lucky enough to win a tournament at Stoke-by-Nayland. So that got me 10 grand first prize, which was obviously a lot of money for me in those days. I was not hard up, but I didn't have a great deal of income coming in, and I was using reserves and that sort of thing. So there was a bit of pressure on me, but to get that 10,000 and win, a Euro Pro event with 15 under for 3 rounds was pretty decent scoring, and it showed that I did have some ability. And so I signed up with a management company, Champions UK, and they were able to get me a start when I got to 50. So having won in I think it was the June, I've got to get through to late August. I unfortunately was one day out getting a tournament prior to the one at Woburn, which was my first event, which was the Travis Perkins. Wonderful golf course for me. It's tree lined. It's about keeping the ball in play, etc., etc., etc. Obviously, I've been playing well. I had played Woburn a few times before without having massive success, but fortunately, I was able to get that invite. Now, I've been told by Andy Stubbs, who was the tournament controller for the European Senior Tour, that would be the only invite that I would be allowed to have. I've since found out that actually isn't true, so I wonder why he actually said that. But the one problem that you've got with tours are that a lot of the ex-European tour players are rather precious about their status, and they don't really like interlopers coming in from, let's say, America, amateurs, PGA pros. Now, most of those guys will never be able to compete. But anyway, I was able to get this invite, and started great. I opening hole, made birdie, and all of a sudden, I was actually in contention rather extraordinarily. No, I was nowhere near winning, but I finished tied third. Now, tied third in those days automatically gets me into the next event, so they couldn't do anything about that. So I then automatically got into the next event, which was in the Czech Republic, near Kutná Hora, in 2 weeks later. So I turn up. I've got a few quid now, so obviously that's good. And so I could afford to go. Wonderful place. The golf course, I think, when we first arrived on the Monday, had about 20 divots on it. It was owned by two millionaires, or multi-millionaires, and they basically invited people to come and play. And if they had 200 rounds in a year, that would probably be it. So we turn up, and it's an amazing golf course, absolutely amazing, fantastic piece of ground, undulating and very tight. If you missed the fairway, basically you reloaded. The rough was brutal, with the extreme, with a capital B. So of course, again, I thought, well, I could do quite well here as well, except the course was quite long. And I was interviewed because I'd done so well the week before, 2 weeks before the previous tournament. And I said, well, I don't think it really suits me. Anyway, funny as it sounds, I then got myself into contention. I shot, I think it was something like 67, first 2 rounds, or something like that anyway. And come the final day, I had to head-to-head match, basically, with Gordon Brown Jr., God bless his soul.
Wow.
And wonderful, wonderful player. And anyway, he was very competitive, putting it mildly. But I sort of eked my way round, and I finished up winning by 3 shots.
My
So
goodness.
it was quite quite an achievement. So of course I've won my second tournament on tour, and guaranteed my status for 2 years. Now things did change after that, because basically it was only top five that were going to get the next event, and you only got a 1 year exemption. But I was fortunate enough in when I first did it, that's what happened. Now, of course, that opens up all sorts of opportunities. It means then I can play whenever I want. Um, you know, it sort of brought me on the scene, and although I'd had a successful amateur career, which we'll touch on later, that was what really probably continued to go through as soon as I turned professional. Really, I was lucky enough that I won my last amateur event with 4 rounds in the 60s at Rotherham Golf Club in the Lee Westwood Trophy. So I was obviously still playing well. It
Yeah.
wasn't as if, I'll give it a go, but I'm not playing well. And I have to be honest, when England said that they didn't want me to play anymore, I don't think it was because I wasn't playing well, because obviously I still had the results coming in that were certainly equal to those that were getting selected. I think they did just say, right, we're going to go down very much the European route of generating new professionals for the tour and also for Ryder Cups in the future. And of course,
Right.
England have produced a lot of very good players, of course, but it was very much the French Swedish sort of route. And they were obviously going to concentrate on the younger players to be able to do that, which I was more than happy to accept that. Whether it was right at the time for England, I think there could have been a slightly better transition than it worked out. But England were never going to look back and go, "We've made a mistake," because they've got so many golfers and so many super talented people. Um, so of course, I'm now on tour. I didn't get many tournaments that first year. But I got Rookie of the Year, which was obviously a nice thing to be able to have. Um, and you start to learn about the little sort of idiosyncrasies of senior tour golf and professional golf. Because although I was very experienced competing all around the world, it wasn't the same when you're actually playing for money. As an amateur, you go out, you play. If you finish 20th, well, it's no big deal. And maybe you might finish 23rd instead of 20th because you haven't focused fully on that final shot or whatever. But if you're in contention, obviously that's the big deal. So it's muck and nettles really. You went for the win, and if you didn't get the win, as long as you were in the top five, that showed really well, maybe top 10. But if you finished outside of the top 10, it didn't really matter if you
Right.
were an international player.
Yeah.
You just were going for those big results that were going to guarantee you a place for the next, whether it was the Europeans or the Eisenhower or the Walker Cup or whatever. You just wanted to get those few results that were going to guarantee it. And of course, because I'd hung around for so long, I got that opportunity to be able to compete all over. So then when I was going out to compete in Australia and places like that, um, it wasn't strange for me to be able to do that. Whereas for some PGA pros, it might have been strange, or for some amateurs that turn professional, having not represented their country, it is quite a step.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Westling made that transition very well and did exceptionally. As an example of a PGA pro, he'd played in the PGA Cup, but he was just a regular PGA pro. For him to go on and do what he achieved, I think he won 6 times and won the Order of Merit one year, which was an incredible achievement for somebody who wasn't really in that stratosphere as far as his regular career prior to that. So I'm fortunate that I had that backing of experience that I was taking with me. And I was lucky enough to then, in 2012, I won twice, back to back. So again, that was, I didn't earn very much money for that. It was, I didn't pick the events. The week later, Tim Phelan won, and he won as much money as I did for the two wins that I'd done the previous 2 weeks. So you do need to pick your dates if you possibly can. But I also won the Australian Senior Open. Unfortunately, it wasn't on our tour at that stage, but I still went out to Perth and won at Lake Kerinyup, which is a wonderful golf course. And so I was proving myself on a fairly regular basis, and I would get some decent results. But obviously, unfortunately, Anno Domini does eventually catch up with you. Basically said it, to the extent where, once you get to 60, you'll notice a brick wall. I probably didn't notice that brick wall until a little bit after that, but I had other extenuating circumstances which probably didn't help my success from then on. But I was lucky. I had probably 13 years of actually being able to earn some reasonably good money. I won 3 times. I won the Australian Senior Open, as I say, as well. So that's basically 4 for me, against some high quality opposition. So, I was 11th in the Senior Open at Royal Birkdale. So although I wasn't the greatest player, and I never have been, I look at others and think, well, they're way more talented than me. But what I was able to do, and this is one of the knacks, I suppose, that I've always been able to draw on, is you could say I'm belligerent. Even if I'm not playing particularly well, I can still get my game in such a way as to be able to be competitive. So I've massively enjoyed turning professional, and it's a dream, I suppose, for a lot of young youngsters that are sort of borderline England, to then play for England and then obviously turn professional and do the stuff that so many of my peers have done since then. Danny Willett being obviously one of those who I played with, and he goes on and wins the Masters. Matt Fitzpatrick's another one. Obviously these are young guys that have gone through the England role. Justin Rose. I played with Justin in the Walker Cup in '97 at Quaker Ridge, and we won our foursomes. And I wish that I'd played with Justin the first day as well, but that was just one of those things. But Justin was a phenomenal talent. He was +1 at 14. And when he turned professional, it didn't work out. But it's because more the fact that he wasn't given good advice when he first turned professional. No, he was young, so
Yeah.
you can excuse that. But he was an amazing and has become an amazing player. I'm in awe of what he's achieved and how long he's going for. And let me tell you, it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't win another major in the next couple of years.
He's certainly got the game. He's got the game and the
and he's
talent.
got a steely determination that when he's got a chance to win, he tends to take it. Ollie Fisher, sadly, was also not given particularly great advice or managed hugely well. And he, as the youngest ever Walker Cup player, has sort of disappeared off the radar, which is a tragedy because, again, what a talent. I was lucky enough to play with him in the Benalik Trophy, which is Europe against Asia Pacific, out in New Zealand. And what a talent he was at 16. And obviously played Walker Cup as well. The youngest GBNI player ever. And you just expected him to go on and do great things. And I can think of others as well. Warren Bennett's probably the best amateur golfer I ever played with, including Woods. And Woods was exceptional. Don't get me wrong. He was exceptional. But I thought that Warren was. And he picked up an injury, and circumstances just led to the fact that he wasn't able to fulfill his full potential, and that's fate. Can you do anything about that? I don't know. Um, it's sliding doors moments, I suppose. But even Sir Michael Benalek thought Warren Bennett was going to win the Open in the next 10 years when he won the silver medal. I think it was at St George's. But
Wow.
what a talent he had every shot in the book. Wonderful attitude. He and I were unbeaten. I think we played 11 foursomes matches and won all 11 foursomes matches.
Wow.
That's for
That's
Great Britain.
amazing.
That's for Great Britain and for England. And he was just a wonderful individual. I would say he's probably the best amateur golfer that I ever saw. Now, Woods was exceptional as well. Don't get me wrong. When he won the Masters by 12 shots, it was 18 months after I had to play him in the Walker Cup. To this day, I'll still always be asked about that. But he was a great player as well. And then, obviously having turned professional, I was lucky enough to play with some amazing golfers, that stand out. Ian Woosnam, obviously, was just
And Sam Torrance would have been still playing when you were
Sam's
playing.
very much so. Sam. I think he got to the stage where I think he probably wasn't enjoying his golf quite as much as he would have done. Sandy Lyle was another one, but Sam
Wow.
was a wonderful golfer. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness me. And to have the opportunity to play with these boyhood heroes, although some would say not so much boyhood in my case, but you admired these players from afar. To actually
Yeah.
get the opportunity to play with Sandy and Sam and Woozy, it was Mark James was another one. A wonderful golfer, a very bright individual, and I always enjoyed his company whenever I got the opportunity to play with him. And those sorts of opportunities are few and far between for most of our sporting heroes to be able to meet them. So for me to be able to rub shoulders with these people was a genuine honour, and to being given those opportunities and to earn some money for the first time in my life. I think that the most money that I ever earned, as far as a normal income, was £24,000. And there
Wow.
might have been a little bit more on top because I did a little bit of writing, but that was pretty much it. And to then, my first event that I won, it was €90,000. I mean, I literally thought I'd won, the
On the
lottery.
lottery.
That's what it felt like.
I'd like to thank Oliver Wilson and True Linkswear UK for sponsoring the show. Let's hear from Ollie now.
The OG3 Pro is the natural evolution of the OG range. We have a wide toe box that allows your foot to work naturally and your toes display. We have a cushioned zero drop platform. It's flexible, minimalist to allow you to feel the ground. It's waterproof and an aggressive spikeless outsole. And of course, it's tour tested.
My management company were very canny. They didn't let me have any of that money until the end of the year. But the funny thing about it was that I'm not really one that's going to go out and buy a Ferrari. I've managed to buy a Jaguar once in my life, and I thought, well, that'll be me done. I kept it for 3 years, and I thought, well, no, there's no point in me having a car like this. I'm only going to get. I'm either going to sort of have a crash or get caught for speeding. So I just thought, well, that'll be me done. But at least I've done these things. I can remember somebody saying, "Oh, first time I win a tournament, I'm going to buy a Ferrari," which he did.
There you go.
And if that's what is your incentive, because you need incentives. For me, it was about looking after my mum and myself, obviously. So that was the incentive to go out and work hard and try and continue to compete. And best order of merit position I ever got to, I think, was fourth. So,
Still some achievement though, Gary. I mean, it's
it
easy
is.
to look
Considering
back
that
and
I'm anything but the wonderful golf. There are so many players that I played with for England, for instance, who are way more talented than me. I just had a way of being
it's
able
just you
to.
kept beating them all the time. That was the
Well,
issue.
but again, we're sort of maybe bordering on some of the other conversations that we're going to have. But I had a scenario where two selectors were stood behind myself and the guy called Liam White, and Liam was a wonderful striker, a wonderful long iron player. He used to rip the 2 irons and 1 irons, and he was just a great player. And me being me, I had sort of probably more head covers than iron heads poking out. But one selector turned to the other and he said, "Well, there you go. That's the difference. He can, and it's all that." And Gary just, doesn't really sort of get it going. And I've had to battle that all my career. Because certainly initially I was close to getting into squads for a while, and not getting in and not getting selected, and then all of a sudden, fortunately, things change. But my professional career has sort of bordered along similar lines, that everyone outdrove me. I was the shortest out there by some margin, but I was still able to compete. And okay, I had to pick my courses, and I still had opportunities, and sometimes I didn't quite finish it off that I should have done. But I look back on it with a sense of pride of taking on an opportunity and not wasting it.
Absolutely. And Gary,
Um,
we need to ask, I mean, how did it all start for you in golf? I know your dad you said was a very good golfer, but where did it come from, and what got you
I,
into the game,
I
really? Where
think
did the passion come from?
I think it was genetics to a certain extent. My father was a wonderful golfer, very tall. Obviously, I'm fairly tall, but I wasn't quite as tall as him. My mother was a wonderful ball sports player. She used to play
Right.
tennis and badminton and squash, and she played cricket. She was in the first team at Harrogate Ladies College in 6 different sports through her schooling. So I probably picked a
Wow.
lot up from her. So genetically, I think that there was something in that. But it's funny, really. Obviously, my parents got divorced when I was very young, so I was only 4 when my mum and I moved in with my grandparents up in Grange over Sands. And my grandfather had been a good player, but had stopped playing because of a bad hip. He'd been a 2 handicapper, which in those days was
It's a
that would
proper
be
2 handicap.
it was a proper 2 handicap, absolutely. My grandma played. She used to play at Grangefell Golf Club, which is where I first started. And I'd just be taken out every now and again, and I loved it. I had a good little swing. I remember having my lessons with the then sort of teaching pro that was attached to probably 2 or 3 courses in the area, because Grangefell was only a little 9-hole golf course, didn't really have a pro
Right.
shop. And a wonderful golf course, so fantastic views looking over Cartmel and the surrounding areas. And literally he would sort of drop a shag bag of balls in front of the first tee, and we'd be playing down the first hole. And
Brilliant.
there was a little bit of a hole, and I had 3 clubs. I had a 7 iron, a 5 wood, and a putter, which I wish to this day I still had. But that they were my first 3 clubs, and I can never forget 2 instances in those days where getting the ball over the hill on the first. Which for a sort of 4.5, 5-year-old was pretty good, and then also hitting the last, which my grandfather gave me half a crown for achieving this, which was basically my week's dinner money for the next week. So quite funny, really. But I didn't sort of play golf a lot. There weren't the opportunities really in those days. So my father would have far rather I've been a cricketer or dentist or anything other than a golfer, because he'd been
Wow.
through some
That's
tough
amazing.
times. But because
Right.
my parents got divorced, golf was still, we loved golf. My grandparents loved golf. My mum, obviously, she could have been a really good golfer, except she couldn't stand the fact that the ball was waiting to be hit, and all she
Right.
wanted to do was hit it a long way, and that was her. She just wanted to smash it. And I remember having a lesson at Keighley Golf Club years and years later, and she hit my 7-iron further than I could, which was quite funny. And I was, how old would I be? 13, I suppose. But she could hit it, which made me laugh, actually. I mean, I looked in awe at her, really. But
That's
no,
excellent.
I didn't sort of play golf. I went to boarding school. I played the traditional rugby, football, cricket, did athletics. I managed to win the in the first summer term. I managed to win the throwing the cricket ball by some margin. It's silly things like that. It was a different era. But I didn't really play golf. I only played in the holidays, and it would be with grandparents or friends or whatever. Even to the extent where I was actually a 23 handicap when I was 18.
So, wait a second. You were what handicap at 18?
I was 23 handicap at 18.
My goodness.
But the funny thing about that is that I got an opportunity in that 18th year to start playing, and I joined. My mum joined me to Silverdale Golf Club, and I started playing medals, and basically I halved my handicap in that year. So I went from sort of 23 to about 12, and then the following sort of year, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I caddied for my father on the European tour for 3 years, and got to meet some amazing people.
Was that from about age 18 then, Gary?
No,
You were
it was
caddying for him?
no. I
Or
was
younger?
caddying for him when I was 16, 17, 18. I caddied for.
Right.
Anyway, so I then sort of was not. I mean, I was dyslexic, so I was useless at school. So I was never going to get a normal career. No one had diagnosed this, by the way. It wasn't diagnosed until, oh God, again into my 30s, really.
Goodness.
And I sort of recognized the fact that that's me. I, jumbled up letters, numbers. I was hopeless. If you gave me a list of 10 6-digit numbers and a calculator, I would never get the correct answer, because I'd be putting numbers in the wrong way. I'd have to literally, I literally had to, incredible amount of focus to be able to do that. So anyway, so I was useless at school. I was reasonably good at, I was articulate, so I could sort of speak quite well. English, I couldn't read until my first book was Lord of the Rings. It took me a year to read. Now, admittedly, it's 3 books, but it took me a year to read, and I'm pretty certain I made up a third of the text. Well, not far off, anyway. I was always the kid. I managed to get, I think, 3% in my Latin exam, because I actually put my name at the top that was written in the right place. It was I literally couldn't fill in any of the. It was hopeless. Words. Writing. I literally couldn't spell. It took me until I was, I think, not far off 7 to be able to write my own name. A bit before that, 5 maybe, when I was actually able to write my own name. It was a struggle. I never read a book, really. I mean, I went to boarding school, but they just put me at the front of the class, and I drew pictures with another lad who probably was dyslexic. Oh, I don't know, but I was good at sports, and I was good at conversing with other people, and I could talk to adults. So it wasn't going to be the end of the world. I mean, Jamie Oliver talked about it, and actually, I relate a lot to what he said about, you know, dyslexia, and how, you know, it wasn't that you were stupid. I wasn't. But I learnt a lot from watching television. I know that's sad,
Right.
but because it was, I was being told things,
Yeah.
and I would watch it, and I picked up more from visuals than I would do from out of a book. But I was hopeless at school, really. I managed to get some qualifications in the end because I was lucky enough to get a little bit. My parents tried to get together again when I was about 12, 13. And we moved out to Melbourne, and I was enrolled in Melbourne Grammar, even though I hadn't got any of the qualifications to get me into Melbourne Grammar. It's because my father knew somebody in the school. And
We played golf, probably.
well, probably, yeah. Anyway, you know, I was given special teaching.
So
Yeah,
how long did you live in Melbourne then,
only a
Charlie?
year. It was a year.
Right.
I had a super long summer holidays, because my England school holidays and then the Australian school holidays sort of
Oh, perfect.
condensed. So it was
Nice.
perfect. So I had probably about 8, 9, 10 weeks off, which going to a new country was always going to be difficult. But you know,
Yeah.
it was hard. Melbourne Grammar is an amazing school. They've got 3,000 pupils. I think I was
That's a
one
big
of.
school. Wow,
Oh, it's
that's incredible.
huge,
Yeah.
huge. The intake is hundreds, literally. Um, but anyway, I by the time I left there, I was probably borderline starting to get some idea about reading and writing, and maths still completely defeats me, I'm afraid. Anything with numbers is it's pointless. To the extent where you know, I've had all sorts of issues in the past where figures have been involved, and I'm just my first job. My father said, look, right, there's no point getting O and A levels. You may as well get some sort of degree. So I left my A level course halfway through and went to Carlisle Technical College, and I did a business studies, O&D business studies course. After a year, he said, it's pointless you being in getting a degree, because the dole queues are full of people with degrees. You've got to get a job. So I went, okay, right. So he tried to get me a job anyway. Didn't materialize straight away, but probably about 2 months later, I got this job with a company called Cora Knitwear in Leicester, big textile business. And they used to have a warehouse full of over £1 million worth of stock just for Marks and Spencers. But they were pretty good at what they did. I was there for 6 months. Basically, they put me in the seconds department. I was quite good at selling, but everything else was pointless. Filling in forms with figures, and I couldn't get it right. And my work had to be checked all the time. So a girl in the office had to basically cover for me to make sure that my maths and everything was correct. It was just a made up job, really, for me. And yes, I was good at selling, but that was about it. And so when they made, I think, 250 people redundant, last in, first out. So I then had no job. And again, I go back to this description of sliding doors. Why didn't I come home? Why didn't I come back to the Northwest? I stayed down in Leicester, and
Right.
I joined a golf club, Kirby Muxloe. But the problem with Kirby was that where I was living in Leicester, it was 2 bus rides. And what I would do is I'd get the last bus from Kirby Muxloe to Leicester, and then get another in from the middle of Leicester up to East Park Road, which is where I was living. And you know, it would take 50 minutes, probably more, to get home on the bus. So I would get the last bus, and then, you know, it was nearly 11. Well, it was certainly 11 o'clock at night by the time I got home.
My
Um,
goodness.
but I'd be practicing, and so this may or may not get out, but to the people that are relevant. But I used to go out onto the golf course. They didn't have a particularly big practice ground, so what I used to do is I used to have a shag bag of balls, which I used to go and go and look for balls around the golf course and get a shag bag full of balls. And then I'd hit balls on the course. So I'd hit, 20, 30 drivers on one tee, and then I'd go and play pitch shots into the green, repair all my pitch marks. I was meticulous about that. And then I'd do sort of 100 bunker shots and 100 chip shots around the green. No one else was there because it was relatively, sort of, well, it was late at night, but it was also not a hugely
What sort of age were you at that point, Gary?
I was about 20.
Right.
And fortunately, I started. There was a member at Kevin Maxlow Golf Club where my father had been a member, funnily enough, and his name was Eddie Hammond, and he was one of the top players for Leicestershire at that time and the Midlands.
Right.
And he knew my father, and he saw potential, and he said, we need to give this guy. And my handicap. My first handicap when I first went down there was, I think I got an 8 handicap given me. I was 10 at that stage.
Right.
But then I got first competition. It was the club championship. I shot 72.80, and they pulled me 3 shots. So.
If you shot 72, I'm thinking you chopped a bit more than that.
I got chopped by 3 shots, so I was a 5 handicap. And it took me a little while to get used to that. But I started playing, sort of county events and things like that. And it sort of moved from there, really. But my father didn't want me to play.
Age 20?
Yeah.
And you're playing off 5?
Yeah. I got to scratch when I actually did get to. I think everyone got a shot back, so I did get back down to scratch when I was 24, and then I played for England for the first time when I was 27.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
But scratch in those days was
scratch was a different beast back then.
Well, it was. They had you used to have a handicap system where it was 5 in 12 with 1 away, so you had to have an away card.
It's 5 and 12. Wow.
Yeah. And 12 rounds didn't start when you felt like you wanted to start it. It started from the first competitive tournament round that you played, whether it was a medal or whatever. So it was tough.
And that was
really
per
hard.
season.
Yeah. And you had your rolling, so you would continue to roll. Once you finish your 12, then you go to the next 12. But
so it was effectively wiped.
Well, you started again from whatever handicap you were.
Yeah, so you had to basically defend your handicap every year.
Yes, it wasn't just every year; it was
all the time.
Every 12 rounds.
Wow.
I mean, things have changed dramatically. I mean, I was the lowest in the world, I think, in 2000. I was plus 5.5, and I don't think there was anyone else. In fact, I'm almost certain there wasn't anyone else in the world at that stage that got down to that handicap. But then since then, it's been plus 7, plus 8. And I'm still trying to work out how you play off plus 8.
I think a lot of it, and it's my own reasonable knowledge, I think the course ratings have gone really high now. I think that's a contributing factor. So the course ratings are so high on big, and if you go to look at the Lytham Trophy or something like that, obviously it's really incredibly talented people. I'm guessing you might have won it.
No, I said that was the best tomorrow.
But you think about that course, Gary. Say I'll make up. Say the course rating's 76, and you shoot one of your bad rounds and you have 71. Right?
Yes, exactly.
You're plus 5,
yeah,
which is incredible. Whereas before, back in the day, it's probably a 73, 74 standard scratch.
Yeah.
Get your buffer zone and all that kind of stuff. So
now, the buffer zone did make a difference, and obviously it could go up 3.
Yeah, and it would a lot for those tournaments, wouldn't it? The big ones.
It really definitely did, because it was done on the top 10%.
Yeah.
In those days, and in realistic terms, I that year where I got down to plus 5.5, I had 1 card at home. That was it. Every card was away from home.
That's really impressive.
So
that's incredible, actually.
But it actually was good from the point of view that I knew I could play, there were guys that were playing in these tournaments that couldn't really play. So the 10% then moved in a
it's
position that
moving.
allowed my results to seem even better. So I was fortunate. Things worked the way they did. As I say, Dad didn't really want me to play, but then, funnily enough, he died very young, tragically. In 1984, he was 53. But he was there, fortunately, to see I won the Leicestershire Fox, which is one of the 36 holers, and I took the trophy in to show him. And he said, what did you shoot? And I think I shot something like 68, 74. And it stuck in my mind. He said, well, what went wrong in the 74? Not the fact that I've managed to win, or the fact that I've had this really good score in the first round to set me up, because it was quite a hard golf course. Willersley Park is a really lovely golf course. But it was the fact that I showed him the trophy, and whether it was slightly tongue in cheek, but it's always stuck with me. And it's there's other lessons that I've learned.
And keeping in mind, you were playing off 5 at the age of 20, and then you're running these 36 holes.
Yeah, but he didn't really sort of view that. I mean, I had a good swing. Don't get me wrong. It was a completely farcical situation. I could play. I was probably the world's greatest 23 handicapper. I could have
definitely
taken anybody on. But unfortunately, I wasn't playing competitions. And then when I did play in competitions, you could only get pulled 3, and it was such that you didn't get pulled quickly. And there weren't a lot of competitions invariably, not like there are now. You'd be playing a monthly medal, and that's only if you were able to play, and if the weather was sort of reasonable, etc., etc. So I didn't play a lot, and so it was very hard to be able to get your handicap down. But then when I did get the opportunity,
I was going to say, when did you first play for the county then?
Probably when I was about 21, I would think.
Right.
Played for the county second team, and the Anglian League was a good league because there was some super courses. But then I got a chance to play in the first team, and I played a couple of their pre-season events against the big counties. And after that, I was then a sort of a certainty to get in the team.
That's phenomenal.
So that gave me the opportunity. I've got a frog in my throat. Excuse me. But I'll have another drink. So anyway, that all said, my first breakthrough was the Midland Amateur, which was at Sutton Coldfield and Little Aston.
Right.
Three rounds at Little Aston, 36 holes a day, Friday, Saturday or whatever. And I won that in a playoff. And that was my first big win. And then I won the West of England the following year. Now, the West of England was a big deal because not that the Midland Amateur wasn't. There was a lot of internationals playing. But for me to win that and then to win the West of England got me into the England squad. So from 86, I was in the England squad. So I went to, I think it was February 86. We went to a place called Almeria, which was on the south coast of Spain. And, it was interesting because I was nowhere near the best player. And the other players hated me because what was I doing there? I couldn't hit it, etc., etc. Oh, how did you do against Gary? Oh, I lost. How did you do against Gary? Oh, I lost. So, the fact was that I had an incredibly fierce drive to prove myself. Golf undoubtedly gave me an identity. It gave me a reason. It gave me pride in myself. And I say pride reservedly. It gave me, as I say, an identity. It made me somebody. Which, you know, if it hadn't been for golf, what would I have been? I don't know, road sweeper or lollipop man. I've no idea. Could still be that in future. But you know, the fact is, golf has always given me an opportunity to be able to shine, and I've worked incredibly hard, self-taught, pretty much. I've had an odd lesson, but generally speaking, I've been self-taught. So it was only really when I got to start to play for England that I had some lessons. And you know, the coaches gave me, you know, some direction and opportunity to be able to. But my game at that stage was very ingrained. I wasn't a big hitter. You know, I was probably longer when I was 16 than I was when I was, you know, 25. I got shorter and shorter because I wanted. Basically, I looked at the best players in the club. I moved from Kirby Muxloe to the Leicestershire Golf Club, and they polarised a lot of very good players. There was a young lad at that time, Alan Martinez, who was one of the best players in the Midlands, never mind in Leicestershire. And I was watching how he, you know, sort of maneuver his way around the golf course and why he was so successful. And I remember losing the final of the Leicestershire match play against Alan. He won the last two holes to win 1-up. And I, you know, I learned a lot from that. And because of that, I worked out that you had to hit fairways and you had to chip and putt well. And I made myself into probably one of the best chipper putters, you know, that England's maybe ever had. Sir Michael Benalek was another one, obviously, but we had similar careers in some respects, won similar events and that sort of thing. He won more than me by some margin. Sir Michael, people have said to me, "Oh, you're the best British amateur." No, Sir Michael Benalek was by far and away the greatest British amateur of all time. But his career only lasted 8-10 years, whereas
My
mine lasted.
goodness.
You see, but mine lasted 20. So I outlasted everybody pretty much. But Sir Michael won, you know, 5 amateurs, 5 English amateurs. He won 3 amateur championships in a row.
Wow.
No one's even come close to that. Peter McAvoy, another wonderful golfer. Again, his career lasted about 10 years. Now, because of me being me, I've outlived all these guys. So Sir Michael Benalek, for instance, played for England 131 times. Peter McAvoy played for England 153 times, and I played for England for 218 times.
And it's, I guess, 153 is the closest to you, is it?
Oh, yeah. No one will have I don't think no one will.
That's never going to be beaten now.
No.
Never.
And it's, you know, it's the other stuff as well. It's, you know, I've got the points record for Great Britain and Ireland as well. So I played in 6 Walker Cups. You know, I've got, you know, 10 points against the Americans. So, you know, that's unlikely ever to be beaten. It's because no one's going to, if they're that good, they're going to turn professional. Or I've said a multimillionaire might want to stay amateur for the rest of his life, perhaps. And that's the only way it'll ever be beaten. But then there's all the other good young players coming through. For them, it's just not likely. And I was a different era, really, basically.
But to go back again, Gary, you've done that, and we're sort of scratching the surface and getting to obviously the parts where you're a more accomplished golfer. But at 27 to break into the England team, I mean, that's so unusual. Everything you've done is incredibly unusual in terms of your development.
It's unique because the fact was that there were older players playing for England in 1988. I was part of the England squad from 86. I was reserve for home internationals and stuff like that prior to that. But then I remember Paul Baxter giving me a letter to say I'd been selected to play against France at the Berkshire Golf Club in 1988. In May 1988, and that was when I first started playing for England. And I suppose the highlight was playing Francois Luz in the final singles, Oops, excuse me. A highlight was playing Francois Luz in the final singles match and getting a half against, it was somebody who was regarded as one of their stalwart top players. And I think that then gave me some impetus. I played with Peter McAvoy in the foursomes, which was a hell of an honour, obviously. We lost our first one and then won our second one. And he said, Gary, the reason we lost our first one wasn't you, it was me. He didn't play well. And that was a nice thing for him to say. And Peter and I were always on a similar wavelength. He's definitely a hero of mine for what he achieved. I mean, he was leading the Open Championship with 9 holes to play. No one remembers that.
My goodness.
So, another wonderful, wonderful player, but for a relatively short period of time, about 10 years. But as I said before, majority of great players tend to be good for 10 years, rarely much more than that. Nicholas, as I say, was one of those that has obviously transcended that particular aspect. But, I then got selected for the home internationals. Mike Kelly was the England captain again. Typical Yorkshireman, we're going to be the best, we're going to win, all this sort of thing. He was just brilliant. And what a player he was. Another superstar hero of mine. Stuff he had achieved as well. And even at 80 now, he still looks like he should be playing, in tournament golf now. He's fit, strong, but he put me with Bobby Ego in the foursomes, which was quite interesting. I wasn't quite sure why he did that, but Bobby was brilliant. And I can remember the first home internationals was at Muirfield. Which again, wow, what
nice
an
place to go
experience
for the home internationals.
Well,
Brilliant.
And I play with Bobby, and we won every game. And I can remember the final match in the home internationals that year was against Ireland, so it was England-Ireland as to who was going to win the home internationals. And I was playing Garth McGimpsey and oh gosh, now I can't remember the other guy's name. Wonderful, wonderful Irish player. So anyway, I was getting really excited because I'd already won my 4 previous matches, as in 2 foursomes, 2 singles. So I was, looking at perhaps getting 6 out of 6 in my first home internationals, which again doesn't really happen. And I was told to calm down by Garth McGimpsey because I was getting so excited about playing well and holding putts and playing a good shot in, and I was getting really excited and I was giving high fives and all that sort of thing and fist bumps. And Garth turned to me and he said, "For God's sake, Gary, calm down like this." As we're walking up the fairway, Bobby whispers to me, he said, "You keep doing it. It's obviously getting under the skin." And we obviously won our match, which was great. So we got 5 out of 5, and I had to play a guy in the, I think it wasn't the final singles, but he was the Irish pitch and putt champion, apparently, a guy called Mark Gannon. And he was even shorter than me, and I was the shortest in the home internationals. And I was out driving him by 20 yards. Well, I've never done that before, so it was a bit of a shock. And he had, it was almost a Parkinson's type dither with his hand, which when he was on the tee, the club would dither with it. So it was literally doing this behind the ball. And I didn't know anything about him at all. So I thought, oh God, he's nervous. I've got no problems here beating this one. Little did I know, because every single shot this club was dithering, including the putter. But he putted me off the course. And he thought I was
saying something for you.
And let me tell you, that was saying something. He had a number of putts less than me, and I putted pretty good. And he beat me on the last. Which went down as a 2 down, but it wasn't, because basically he was pretty close in 3, and I missed my birdie putt. So basically, he was 1 up with 1 to play.
Yeah.
So I conceded the match, and the referee's gone, and Ireland win the match 2 up. And I've gone, hold on a minute, we haven't conceded the putts. It was anyway. He probably would have held it because the way he was putting was incredible. But even so, it was just a little bit annoying at the time. But he stopped me getting 6 out of 6 in my first home internationals. Mark Gannon. I'd love
There
to
you
know what
go.
he's doing now, but he was an older player as well. But Ireland had quite a few older players in their team, hence why they were so competitive. And I remember, obviously, big thing coming down the last. Carl Sunderson had to play a guy called Mark Rafus. Now, let me tell you, I'm terrible on names, but the fact that this is indelibly etched on my brain, and Carl won the final hole to win the home internationals for us.
My
And
goodness.
so anyway, the speeches came up. Mike Kelly stood up and said, well, of course, we were the best team. You go, well, we've managed to win because somebody was fortunate enough, because Mark Rafus took about 20 on the final hole. Otherwise, we could have lost the home internationals. But anyway, just funny that things like that stand out in your memory. And of course, that evening we had a scenario where we had dinner in the hotel just off the Marine Hotel, just off North Berwick, and that's where we were staying. And we stayed in the beautiful, it's a lovely hotel. Anyway, after this, I think Ricky Willison was probably one of the main instigators of this. It was another buddy of mine and a wonderful, wonderful golfer. He basically was always, I used to get up and have a look at the sweet trolley. And anyway, just prior to that, Ricky stands up and he says, I'd like to make a toast. He said, gentlemen, I'd all like to charge your glasses and stand to make the toast to Mark Gannon, stopping me getting 6 out of 6. So everyone stands up and has a drink, and I've thought, oh, well, that's nice. Thanks for that. So Ricky stands up again. He said, I'd like to make another toast. He said, to Mark Gannon. So he stood up 3 times through the meal to toast Mark Gannon on, obviously, beating me. So I got up to the sweet trolley as I always did, and I said, I'd like a large bowl of trifle, please. And so anyway, as I'm walking past, Ricky goes, oh, what have you chosen today, Harry? I said, trifle, went poof, straight in his face. He
Brilliant.
said, and the funny thing about that was he then quipped by saying, Gary, that's about the funniest thing you've ever done. He did get his own back, mind you, because I was as we were finishing the meal, he said, right, Gary's getting thrown in the pool. And we had Russell Claydon and a few other quite big guys in our team. Anyway, there was a swimming pool out in the garden, open air swimming pool. And I was chased out into the garden, eventually rugby tackled by Russell Claydon. And I was then picked up and dragged to the swimming pool, where they got 2 guys on my arms, 2 guys on my legs, and threw me into the pool. But they didn't throw me far enough, and I bounced in, basically off the edge of the pool. My ribs, how I haven't broken a rib, I've no idea. I came out, I was black and blue. Anyway, I went back up to my room and got changed, and came back down. And the Welsh guy said, oh, Keith Jones, our superstar, hasn't come back down, because they'd obviously done it as well, or something similar. So he said, we're going to make you an honorary Welshman for coming back downstairs, having been thrown in the pool. So I got I had a Welsh shirt somewhere where I was made an honorary Welshman. So, but that was my first home internationals, a fantastic experience on an amazing golf course, obviously. But yeah, so it's little things. I say little, it was huge at the time for me, but it was things like that that stick out in my memory as a driving force, because just by the very fact of doing so well against France and then obviously doing well in the home internationals, it gave me an identity. I was in the local Leicester Mercury, and I obviously got in the England magazine and stuff like this. It's sort of, you read about yourself and you want to see it more and more. It drives you on. So I was then more determined. And at that time, I was doing almost any job that I could get hold of. I was doing everything other than be a postman, policeman, or a fireman, I suppose. I did all sorts of things. I worked in shops and God knows what else. Anything just to be able to allow me to be able to continue playing at that level. And it's looking back on that period. Could I have ever imagined that I was going to, turn out the way, or my career was going to turn out the way that it did? There's no way you could ever imagine at my age, with the fact that I was nowhere near the best player, but I had a knack of getting results. And I've got a picture of my first car. It was a Ford Escort Mark III, with 3 different colours of yellow panel, and I've got a picture of it, and it's like a driving force.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's weird how things work out.
And I think that's a fantastic place to end this episode, Gary. And we've done the first part, so we're looking to do, hopefully, 3 or 4 episodes. The next episode, we're going to talk more about your amateur career and get into even greater detail around some of those home internationals and your national events that you've won and everything else. So thanks so much for coming on for the first episode, and I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Good. Well done. Thank you.
A huge thanks to Gary Wolstenholme for joining me on the show. I loved hearing his reflections on turning professional later in life, the lessons he's carried from his amateur days, and the stories that show just how much heart this game demands. That's part 1 done, and there's plenty more to come. Make sure you hit follow so you don't miss part 2, where Gary dives into his amateur career and some of those unforgettable moments in the Amateur Championship. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend and leave a quick review. It really helps more golfers discover the podcast. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram @LinkByGolf2024 for behind the scenes content and future guest news. I'm Ross McGuire. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay linked by golf.
Lomond Golf Tours have helped thousands of guests build bespoke golf trips to create a magical experience. Travel in style with our executive chauffeur travel, whether it's golf on a major championship venue or one of our hidden gems, 5-star accommodation or a boutique bed and breakfast, or is it whiskey tasting on a private boat? Lomond Golf Tours are here to help build the tour of a lifetime. Whether you're celebrating a special occasion or ticking it off your bucket list, embark on a trip that you'll remember forever. To learn more about our offerings for 2025 and beyond, visit www.lomondgolftours.com.